Good morning, Prospect. Tomorrow is Ash Wednesday, and we begin our time of renewal and our journey to the cross. And I'm going to remind you of that regularly because in the world that we all live in, and this has nothing to do with coronavirus, in the world we all live in, self-examination is not something that we like to do. I want to just briefly ask your opinion on what sin is, because as a pastor, my definition of sin has probably changed over the years. The simplest definition for me has always been the actual Greek word that sin comes from, hamartia, which simply means missing the mark. And we miss the mark for all kind of reasons. And part of the reason I want to talk about sin today is that in the world, I'm not going to say the church, but in the world, there seems to be two views of sin. One of them goes like this. Sin is such an outdated term. It was something that was used to keep people in line back in the day, and the word itself doesn't mean anything because there's no such thing as sin. I'm borrowing a phrase from the 60s, if it feels good, it's okay to do it. And then the other side seems to say that sin is doing specific bad things. And both of those, if you will pardon me, I think miss the mark. Because when you talk about missing the mark, I've practiced archery, I've not studied it, I've practiced it a little bit, and I know when I draw back the bow, if my arm is down or up, it changes where the arrow flies. And in fact, everything about the arrow's flight is controlled by me. And I really do believe that any action can be a sin, and any action that some people can be considered sinful can be, I don't want to say excused, but can be explained as not sinful. And a perfect example of that comes out of the Old Testament where Saul was chasing David with the intention of having him killed. And David and his men were hiding in caves, and David went into the tabernacle and stole the bread, which was against the rules, and it was considered a sin, but it was not counted to him as a sin. Stealing, while it may always be wrong, is not always a sin. And I want to explain it to you this way because I think it explains what sin really is. Sin is an improper concern for self, or an over-exaggerated concern for self. If you see something wrong, and I'm making this up, so if you see someone beating their child in public, and you worry more about how it's going to make you look than about what's happening, that's a sin. So it's when you think about the flight of an arrow, sin is an improper, the reason you miss the mark is it's an improper curve of the arrow back towards self. And obviously the arrow's not going to make a circle, but it is an improper curve towards yourself. I believe Augustine said that originally. So you can't define sin simply as a series of actions that if we just avoid, we won't sin, because that's not true. And you can't excuse sin as an archaic term that has no application in the world today, because that's also not true. The mistake those people make is they have literally put themselves in the place of God and decided for themselves what is right and what is wrong. And if you put yourself in the place of God, I can put myself in that place and disagree with you, and which one of us is right. Recognize, people, we are all sinful. One of the things that we need to do this Lenten season is spend a little bit of time thinking less about ourselves and thinking more about others. Prospect, may God richly bless you this day.